I'm off on Wednesday. I'll be in Eau Claire. I need to get more anyways.
All right.
This is yours.
Really?
Yep. This
Oh.
must be mine then.
Okay, we'll call this meeting to order. Start with the pledge of allegiance to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. The clerk will read the call.
Dear Supervisor, please be advised that the Trempealeau County Board of Supervisors will meet at 7 p.m. on June 17th, 2024 in the County Board Room. All County Board members' claims are due in the County Clerk's office by noon on June 6th, 2024, so that they can be prepared for Audit Committee approval. Sincerely, Paul Severson, County Clerk.
Certify the open meeting law requires been met with proper posting and notification.
Yes.
Clerk will take the roll.
Bridget Turner.
Here.
There you go. Stacy Klein.
Here.
Richard Seisha. Here. Lori Severson.
Here.
Andy Todd.
Here.
Richard Anderson.
Here.
Kevin Adams.
Here.
Dick Miller.
Here.
Kevin Whalen.
Here.
John Austin.
Here.
Don Waldera.
Here.
Robert Becker.
Here.
Renee Lyon. Kellen Nelson.
Here.
David Larson.
Here.
Jeannie Nutter.
Here.
Ron Johnson. Here. 16 and 1.
We have a 12-item agenda. Looking for a motion to approve.
Move to approve.
Motion by Johnson, seconded by Nutter. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Okay.
Aye.
You got to remember one on there. She did.
Okay, previous minutes. Looking for approval. Our motion to approve. Motion by Becker.
Second.
Second by Seisha. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Got them all. Carried. Administrative update.
All right. Well, thank you. First, I'd like to call a unanimous vote to ask Chair Austin to turn off the spigot, please, that we stop the rain. Yeah, there you go. All right.
Works.
Tonight, I just wanted to touch on a couple of topics. I just sent a update for kind of a monthly update for you all. But this evening, I want to talk a little bit about two subjects that are kind of coming to the forefront that we're talking about in some committee meetings, because we're talking about the renovation of the government center building, and part of that conversation is childcare. And why, I just want to talk a little bit about and share why that's important. You got a handout in front of you this evening and looking at a little bit of data that talks about the child care issue. I have a couple of short videos that I think are really very good. They're just really informational and they really hit on those points. And so I'm going to ask Kevin, he's going to start this one up for me. And we'll watch this first and then we'll go into the second one and I'll just share a couple things from there.
Alicia and Craig needed an early care and education program for their 2-year-old son, Jaden. Eventually, they found a suitable childcare center nearby that offers a nurturing environment for Jaden and is open while they're at work. But it costs nearly $10,000 per year. That's more than a mortgage in most states. Even though they're paying the average price for childcare, it's a financial burden, and now they're expecting a second child. Meanwhile, Jaden's teacher, Sonia, is worrying about how to put food on her own table. Even though she has a bachelor's degree, she earns less than $15 an hour. In fact, more than half of childcare workers and nearly half of preschool and kindergarten teachers reside in families that utilize public assistance. Childcare is complex work that can impact children throughout their lives. Yet Sonia, like many early educators, doesn't receive benefits like health insurance and paid leave. So why do early childhood teachers earn so little when parents pay so much for childcare? There's a flaw in the system. Parent fees alone are not enough to fund quality early education. Let's look at the facts. Parents pay an average of $10,000 annually for center-based care. In certain locations, and depending on the age of the child, the average cost for licensed childcare is even higher. Let's take a closer look at Jaden's Child Care Center. He's one of 40 children attending full-time. Family payments equal $400,000 a year. About 12% goes to rent, utilities, and maintenance. 23% goes for classroom materials, food, and administrative costs. This leaves about $260,000 for personnel. Early care and education is labor-intensive and requires low adult-to-child ratios to ensure quality interactions. Jaden's Center, open 10 hours a day with 40 children and 3 classrooms, needs at least 3 lead teachers, 6 assistant teachers, and 1 director. The remaining money doesn't allow for median salaries, let alone benefits. Parents can't afford to pay. Teachers can't afford to stay. Public
We'll end it right there and go on to this next video that is from Wisconsin community, and just a story on that as well.
I had a mom whose job started right at 5. I backed up my hours to 4:45 so she could drop her child off in order to get across town to work. It's like, okay, I can give you 15 minutes in the morning so that you can get there and get that door open for whatever it is you need to do so that you can help the people that you're helping.
In the small city of Waupaca, Wisconsin, My First Adventure Childcare is a fixture, helping families before the sun even rises.
Most of our parents, when they drop off, are like, I could never do what you do. Oh, did he not sleep last night? And my response is always, well, I can't do what you do either, so I'll watch your kids and you go do that. Because I'm better at this.
Who's gonna hold this?
Across the country, more than 12 million kids under the age of 5 are in childcare at least once a week, care that's become increasingly difficult for their parents to afford. In the last 3 decades, the cost of childcare has risen at nearly twice the rate of inflation. A recent report found having 2 kids in daycare is more expensive than rent in every single state. In 11 states and Washington, D.C., it costs double the average rent.
It's so expensive with 2 kids that come every day full time. It's double our mortgage. I mean, we make a good living, but it's
Your childcare
so
is double
much.
your mortgage.
Yeah, easily. Probably more than double our mortgage.
My First Adventure Childcare, this is Susan.
It's not just hard on parents. Running these centers is so expensive, owners like Susan Elent struggle to make the math work.
If you were going to pay your teachers what they were worth, even based off of basic education and experience, you would need to charge the parents so much that you would have no children in your center, nor could parents afford care.
Can you explain that to me? Like, where does all the money go?
In addition to all your usual utilities, we also have insurance. The insurance for childcare is very high. The mortgage on the building and property taxes and personal taxes that go in with that. And then there are also licensing fees, background check costs. There's paint and paper and Play-Doh. And then there's food on top of it. It's a lot.
Yeah. Ball.
The biggest cost and challenge, Elent says, is staffing.
What's the turnover like?
For staff,
Yeah.
it's high. I had a staff member leave me a couple of months ago. She's like, I'm gonna go work at a factory. You know, she needed to make a living.
The federal government has put more than $52 billion towards supporting childcare since the beginning of the pandemic. Like many providers, Elent used that money to raise salaries from $8 or $9 an hour to at least $12.
If you had to put the salaries back to where they were before you got this funding help,
They'd all quit. Every last one of them.
Even with the wage bumps, childcare workers are still some of the lowest paid workers in the country. Here in Wisconsin, the median hourly wage, $13.78 an hour, doesn't even qualify as a living wage, and in some cases is classified as poverty level.
It's very humbling to go to work every day and pass help wanted signs at McDonald's and Hardee's, and they are paying more money than childcare providers can afford to pay their staff.
Lydia Higgins is a teacher at My First Adventure. She took the job because childcare was so hard to find, the only way to get her daughter a spot was to join the staff.
I actually just went back to waitressing for the first time in a decade to kind of help supplement our income.
what's the money like waitressing versus childcare?
I can make one night waitressing my entire week's pay. And so that's
In the childcare?
Yeah.
Yeah, should you be able to support your family working in childcare?
I would think so. I would hope so. We are literally shaping tomorrow's youth, and I think that needs to start being reflected in compensation, in policies, in where government funding is being directed.
The federal support that helped centers stay open since 2020 has largely expired, creating what's been dubbed a childcare cliff. More than 70,000 programs are projected to close from the strain.
I love you too.
My First Adventure will soon be one of them. After 8 years in business, Elin announced she's shutting the center down, leaving more than 60 families scrambling for alternative childcare.
No getting sidetracked. I experienced a lot of guilt. You know, it's like, if I leave, where are these families going to go? What are they going to do?
You want to read stories today?
I am no longer have enough energy to provide the care that I know these children deserve.
You're just too burned out.
I'm just too burned out.
When you got the notification that they were closing, what was that like for you?
I started panicking and applying to every other daycare in town. None of them have any spots. I texted my boss and I said I might have to quit my job because I don't know what I'm gonna do with my kids. We don't have family, so it's just us.
Why do you think childcare is important?
As a woman, how am I going to work if I can't drop my kids off everywhere?
If there is a childcare shortage, we are going to probably lose some of our labor force because one of the parents will have to stay home.
Does that affect your local economy here?
Absolutely.
Childcare funding is now up to the states. In Wisconsin, some emergency funding will last into 2025, but the long-term solution remains an open question. My First Adventure won't be here to see it. The center will close in July.
How's it going to feel for you when you close up shop?
That day will be really, really hard because I remember when I first walked in, and I remember all those hopes and those dreams and everything that I was going to build. And I try to remind myself that I did do that. Childcare is essential to a functioning economy. I want people to not take the programs that they have their children in for granted because they might not be there forever. I thought, I would be, and I'm not.
Thank you, Thanks, Kevin, for pulling that together. So the handout that you have just shows Whitehall specifically, and the yellow area of the childcare desert area where there are almost 25 children under the age of 5 for every one childcare spot that's available. You can just see on some of the numbers on how this impacts our business revenue across the state of Wisconsin and affects businesses as well as just the cost in how that impacts on individuals. So I just wanted to share this information with you because we're having this conversation right now and talking about how it impacts our local economy and how we're striving to make a difference here and how that can make a change for us in the future and lead our county in this way. So that's the first topic. The second topic I wanted to talk to you about tonight is the budget that we're starting to work on, and we're going to share some of the documents coming up here later, looking at just our processes that are in place. So I just wanted to share. I'm going to go to my screen and share my screen real quick. Oops. I don't need to see that. Okay. So this shows the shared revenue that we get from the state of Wisconsin over the past 24 years. So starting in the year 2000, we were at about 1.9 million, and I'll go to the next slide in a minute, a little over. By the year 2023, we were at about 1.7 million. And this is Trempealeau County. So this is data right from the Department of Revenue. The local entities, all of us, meaning counties, cities, villages, towns, all banded together and said, we have got to get to our legislatures and talk to them about this crisis that we're having here at this level, which I'm sure you've been experiencing as well. And just knowing that The shared revenues are flat or declining over that 23-year period of time, and service needs are still there. We have increased road costs that have expanded by almost 25% in some years, and so we're struggling to try to figure out how to continue to keep our assets at a level that the community expects from us, right, and to provide those services. In 2024, then, we did see an increase. Again, if I'm looking at these numbers, and I'll have some more specifics as we go along, but we're now closer to the 2016 level instead of 2000. So we did get a bump. It's been 23 years of that effect on us, which has, all of you know, if you drive on roads, if you look around in some communities with deterioration, that's a lot of the impact that we see over that time. So I'll just share the next slide if I can. Okay, let's see here. There we go. So this was the exact amount in 2000, and then in 2023, $122,930 less in shared revenue. 23 years later, like I said, we did get a bump in year 2024. This is a reflection of our sales tax revenue for Trempealeau County. You can see that we've had increased gains in sales tax revenue over time, which is spending, of course, right? So when you have times of recession or slower growth, that can affect it, but we have seen pretty steady growth over this. And I assume that that may have been some of the thought behind the county board in putting money into hiring an economic development and tourism manager in the past, and that happened in 2017. And so that is, something that's been put into place across counties to try to build this revenue source, since we don't have the shared revenues that had been coming in. We have some of the most strict levy limits in the country in keeping those, and the impact that that has on us is again some of the reflection that we've seen, which is based off of net new construction, right? Our net new construction rates, if you're not growing, you're not going to see your budget increase as well. So without those things, then we've been stagnant or lagging behind. And this is, again, why economic development and tourism is a big push, in that we've seen area communities and counties try to stress the importance of increasing our revenues. Otherwise, we decrease our services, try to decrease our budgets, right, to fit. And we can think of new tax, there's not a lot of tax avenues that we can implement. A wheel tax, which is not popular, has been implemented in some areas, but that is one avenue to try to raise funds for roads. Another is fairly new. It's called a road utility tax. That's more where there's a tax placed on businesses that have more heavy trucking, that use the roads more. Of course, always increased fees, which as departments we need to look at, right, over time, and the cost of what it costs us as services to provide some of those same things has to go up because of the costs of people and what we have to think about and consider. So there's the sales tax revenue and then population. So when we think about population growth, we also think about how people are living and spending and creating tax base here. So we saw some healthy growth in 2020. It's been pretty level or decreasing a little bit since then. So, in looking at how we start to build out our budget for 2025, it's important for us to think about not only how we can be frugal, and making sure that we are very careful about how we spend tax dollars, which is very important, but also to think about how can we just like every other business, we have people and things to pay for, supplies, like we said, roads, all of these things that increase in cost for us as well because of the cost of materials and people. And so we need to really think about what can we do to optimize that. So I'll be bringing forward and just kind of talking to you about where do we spend our funds now, and are we getting our best ROI on those funds, and how are we reaching new businesses to come into this area? How are we reaching new people to come and be a tourist here, but also to live here and be a part of the community? And I think people think about that a little bit more when they decide that they want to move from their home, and they want high home values, right? And if we don't have people interested in coming to our area, then it affects us. And so I guess one last thing I'll just say is I am super optimistic about all of the potential that we have here, and being between two large population centers, and the beauty of this area certainly puts us at an advantage to put things into place that can help us to think about how we grow our opportunities here. So, thank you.
Thank you, Rebecca. District Attorney John Sesha, update.
Thank you, Chairman Russell. Good evening, everyone. My name is John Sesha. I think a lot of familiar faces here.
Turn your mic on.
Oh, mic on. All right. Okay. All right. Now we're in business. Good to see everybody again. Good to be in this new space with you all. I'll be brief. I'm going to go over a few things tonight just to kind of give you an idea as to what's going on in the District Attorney's office presently. Which we're going to talk about numbers first, which is kind of a perennial topic, just to let you know what the office is engaged in, kind of at a macro level. And we'll be talking about some of the things that my office is requesting from the state in the months ahead. So firstly, looking at numbers, my office is averaging around 1,200 referrals per year. There are two prosecutors in the office, me and ADA Diaz, and so that breaks down roughly to about a caseload of 600 cases per prosecutor for the office. That's a high number. It's considerably higher, in fact, than a lot of larger markets that have a large number of prosecutors to kind of share the burden of the caseload. For example, in La Crosse County, there are 11 prosecutors, including the DA. They have, I guess last year in 2023, they had around 4,050 cases for their office. Compare that to Trempealeau County, where we had 1,200 cases for two prosecutors. The numbers break down such that even though we're a small county, relatively speaking, we're a small office, relatively speaking, our prosecutors are doing a lot more work per capita than a lot of other counties. My office and the state have kind of been looking at what that distribution of work looks like statewide. And fortunately, I think that we're in a good position. Trumbull County DA's office is in a good position to make a strong argument for a second ADA in the next budgeting cycle. So you guys are all aware that's a state-funded position, not a county-funded position. So that's somebody's salary that's not going to be coming out of the county budget. So you're aware, us making this request to the state does require support from kind of various stakeholders in Trempealeau County, to include you all, Law Enforcement Commission, Criminal Justice Coordinating Council, County Administrator, and others. So just as a heads up, in the weeks ahead, I will likely be contacting you guys and giving you kind of a breakdown with kind of a more detailed analysis of what our workload looks like relative to other counties, and asking for your support at the state level to fund a second prosecutor position for the office. Again, not hitting you guys up for money for a position for a new attorney. This is a state-funded position. I will say that along with this, there has been a considerable increase in our kind of administrative burden with the passage of Marcy's Law some years ago. Offices kind of looked with a newer, keener eye toward a lot of our obligations towards victims. That includes redactions in reports, so editing out names, editing out sensitive personal identifying information. Unfortunately, there's no easy way to do that other than to have somebody sit down and, on a computer screen, black out lines of text that are sensitive. You can get better at doing it the more you do it, by Control F, finding certain names, but it still takes time, and it's a big burden on the administrative folks in my office. So at some point there may come a request to fund at least a partial position to assist with those obligations. My staff now are really feeling kind of the burdens of this job and the burdens of having a relatively high caseload for our office. Looking next to where we're at for 2024. Currently, as of today, we have 560 referrals this year, so we're relatively on track with annual averages, maybe just a little under, but frankly, our numbers tend to go up during the summer months. So I think that we're pretty much on track with the number of referrals this year. You can compare that to last year. There were roughly 1,200 referrals. Year before that, 1,150. Year before that, 1,300. Year before that, 1,200. And so we're pretty much on track for a consistently busy year in 2024. That's all I have for you guys this evening. If anyone has any questions, I'm happy to take those up at this time. Jeannie.
You don't need to go into great. Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah. You don't need to go into great detail, but just give me a quick status of what juvenile cases are like, Chips and.
Yeah, happy to do that. For some reason, and I've discussed this with DHS on a few occasions, our CHIPS cases, our Children in Need of Protection Services cases, are way down from what they have been historically. I think in 2018 we had over 50 cases that year, so 50 children who were determined to be children in need of protection services. That was 2018 or so. In 2024, we've had one CHIPS case, which is, it's incredible. I think there are a number of reasons for this. DHS advises us, due in part to the fact that the number of referrals are down. That's a good thing. They attribute it in part to the fact that they're fully staffed and able to kind of provide people with services in the community and do it informally without formal CHIPS filing. That's a good thing too. Obviously, it's something that I'm, when you see a shift in numbers that radically over a relatively short period of time, it makes me nervous because I want to make sure that we're still doing everything that we can to keep kids safe. But I do believe DHS when they tell me that it's due to a number of factors that are positive. Lower referrals, more engagement with families, more deployment of informal resources rather than formal CHIPS filings, rather than just we're not doing anything. I do think that it's a reality that certain standards at the state level are changing and becoming more restrictive. It's harder basically to get Department of Human Services agency in the state to intervene, because the guidelines for intervention, or the thresholds for intervention are higher than they were a decade ago, for example. And that's a two-edged sword, right? We don't want to be intervening needlessly, but on the other side of that, we've all heard horror stories about situations where in retrospect, we say there should have been some involvement, but there wasn't. It's a real two-edged sword. I think the brightest spot in this is the fact that the gross number of referrals are down. There are fewer people calling CPS to say, hey, this is what's going on in the apartment next door, or this is what's going on with the kids across the street. Mom or dad is leaving them, outside, or they're, walking outside with a dirty diaper on for hours. There are fewer calls like that, and I think that's a real positive thing. Delinquency numbers are high. They've been climbing since 2018. We've kind of had an inversion almost of CHIPS versus delinquency cases. So our delinquency numbers are high, it's a challenge. I know that DHS has allocated some more workers to help address that caseload, which was necessary and is a good thing. We're seeing a lot of delinquency referrals, and a lot of delinquency referrals for some pretty serious behaviors. I mean, we've always had serious delinquency referrals, but it just seems like there's more than there were 5 years ago, for example. I'm glad that DHS is putting more workers on that caseload, because that's really where I think kind of the need is at this point. There's a need to kind of get involved with these kids and help meet the stated objectives of Chapter 938, which is to rehabilitate and kind of provide positive alternatives for kids who are involved in the process. So yeah, DHS I think is doing a nice job of that. There's always kind of more work to be done, and I think they could probably benefit from allocating another social worker to just doing delinquencies, and it wouldn't be a bad thing. But yeah, there's a need there, and I think that the need is definitely still on that delinquency space relative to the children in need protection services space.
I would bet that some of those delinquent kids could be in that CHIPS track as well.
Oh,
It's
absolutely.
just the delinquency thing is more in your face, so.
Oh, totally.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And it's unfortunate when you have a situation where you've had kind of reports at a household for kind of trouble with kids at home, and then ultimately just it goes from being a situation where social workers can be really effective, maybe at sort of helping the family kind of process behaviors better, until we get to a point where it's all about the kid and what the bad behavior that the kid is doing, and less so about the family dynamic within the home and what they can do to kind of address the big picture within the home. Because sometimes it is about the home dynamic and not just the kid dynamic. You have kids that act up sometimes, you have kids that misbehave for whatever reason, but sometimes they're acting up and misbehaving because of dynamics in the home. You have a kid who's an angel at school, does everything right, and then when he gets home, he's grabbing a kitchen knife. Like, we literally have cases like that. And you gotta think that there's something going on in the home that's causing this behavior only to manifest in the home dynamic. So yeah.
Well, thanks for caring about these cases and these kids and your incredible passion and interest in our children.
Well, thank you. I appreciate. I do care a lot about it, and I'm fortunate to be able to kind of work with DHS and help on those cases. So,
Mr. Sasha, just one question. I heard you say that our numbers are down. Our CHIPS cases, there's only been one this year.
Yes.
How does that compare to Wisconsin, other counties?
That's a good question, and I don't know. It's easy. It's fairly easy for me to find out. The other, sort of criminal referrals or traffic referrals and all that. It's a little trickier to kind of get the numbers for CHIPS referrals. I'm going to look into that though, and next time I chat with you guys, I'm going to let you know where we fall.
Thank you.
I wouldn't be surprised if it's pretty consistent elsewhere, and I think I think that the standards for intervention are changing, and I think that's kind of driving numbers down everywhere. But I'm going to look into that. Thanks for pointing that out. For whatever reason, I haven't thought to compare those CHIPS numbers.
John?
Yes.
I think I applaud the fact that the numbers are down. It does occasionally happen when a large family pops up and there may be 6, 7 kids that require some attention. So, the numbers are down, that's good. But I think in working with families, it can change quickly too. But I do have a comment or a question. In the past, there has been a real concern about the salaries available for ADAs.
Mm-hmm.
Is that going to be an issue if you are permitted to hire a second ADA?
It's always challenging for rural counties to draw new hires to the area. I will say, fortunately, in recent years, there's been some action to fund pay progression at the state level. And so the starting wages for ADAs is considerably higher than when I started back in 2018 or 2015. It's kind of more competitive with what an attorney could make at a different comparable kind of entry level attorney job. So I think that fortunately we're in a much better position to kind of offer a base rate that's fairly competitive. And I think we're in a position also to kind of say, hey, that salary is going to go a lot further in Trempealeau County than it will in Dane County, because it's the same whether you're in Dane or whether you're in Trempealeau. And so I think if you're kind of a shrewd, if you're kind of thoughtful about that, like I think there's a reason to take the job in Trempealeau versus taking the job in Dane. It's fortunately with, there are also some other incentives to hire above that minimum starting salary for rural counties. We were able to kind of leverage that when, in the last time we needed to hire an ADA, which worked out well. But if we struggle, that might be an option that we're able to kind of draw upon from the state to boost wages. But I think we're in a much better position than we were in even 4 years ago. Considerably better position now than we were a handful of years ago to kind of offer a salary package that's fairly competitive. For the longest time, ADAs were making considerably less than starting deputies were making, and they had to drive their own car to work. So that's corrected a little bit. You're not going to get rich off an starting ADA salary, but you can at least afford to pay your bills and pay your student loans.
Good. Glad to hear that.
Okay, any other questions? Hearing none, thanks a lot, John.
Yeah,
Thanks, John.
thank you all. Yeah, have a good evening. Take care.
Resolutions. Awarding the sale of $19,200,000 generation bond. Brian Riley's here from Ellers. You want to start us out?
Yeah, good evening. Just a quick reminder, based on our prior discussion and the authorization put in place by the board for refinancing of the...
Oh, we lost you.
Sorry, somebody muted me. That's okay. Maybe you didn't like what I was saying. In any event, I just want to kind of maybe take a step back and go back to last month's meeting, especially as relates to the item as a resolution. The county board authorized proceeding with refinancing of the 2015 bonds, as was discussed at that time. The healthcare center has essentially paid 100% of the debt service since the date of issue, and it would be the full intent that that would continue. Because it's 100% refinancing and no new money, we're not compelled to go out and execute the refinancing. It's more of an opportunity. And so that authorization that was put into place identified a number of what are called parameters that, as long as they're satisfied, the bonds can be sold, and a award certificate could be executed by designated officials. In this case, Mr. Gluin at Trempealeau County Healthcare Center, Lori Glauner, and Jerry Dietz would be the three signers. So there does not need to be a follow-up resolution of the board. The board is essentially authorized the issuance subject to satisfaction of the parameters. We did happen to target the board meeting date of today to hold sale of the bonds, just like we normally would. That was actually just convenient for any number of reasons. Unfortunately, I'm here to just quickly give an update and state that when we had the bonds priced this morning, we took bids, as we talked about last time. We did not meet the minimum savings threshold of 4% net present value. We did generate savings to the tune of a little over 3%, and that in and of itself is about $700,000 of total cash flow savings through 2035. But again, because we have the floor of 4%, the only course of action was to reject the results of the sale this morning. And so in and of itself, that's not punitive. The market has been moving our way, but the market is also telling us that in some parts of our maturity structure that certain things we're asking for, I guess they don't like. And let me explain a little bit. We built the issue with standardized terms and conditions. Everybody can see what you're asking for in this context. And one of those would be something that you would customarily do, and that is insert a prepayment feature. We're actually taking advantage of that right now. The 2015 bonds, when they were sold, had an optional prepayment feature that allowed the county on and after August 1 of this year to essentially prepay. That includes refinancing and paying the old bonds off. In the case of this new issue, we inserted a prepayment feature that on and after August 1 of 2031, again, the full prepayment privilege would then exist. Again, refinancing could be an option, or partial or full prepayment, essentially at any time of due notice, could be exercised. This would be about a 10.5-year bond issue from date of closing through the final maturity date. And so you're right around a 7-year prepayment feature, which would be normally very customary. There would be about $8 million of principal remaining when you hit the August 1 of 2031 date. So it seemed like there would be some value in preserving the prepayment option, either for what would ultimately be a final kick at the can for refinancing for savings, given the dollar amount. That's a good size and could absorb some costs. Rates would need to go down for sure to be able to enjoy that, or to potentially use available cash to pay the debt off early. Certainly, the market is telling us that that's an expensive privilege to have. Our final two maturities priced a little bit over where we had estimated as of last week. We are out in the market regularly throughout the course of every given week, some less so than others. Last couple of weeks have been relatively active. Rates have moved in our direction, but clearly our final two maturities priced worse than other comparable maturities in the marketplace that were non-callable, that were not subject to prepayment. And I'll be completely honest here, I think we underestimated the amount of rate premium required to to functionally market those two maturities. And so we were about 0.4% underneath where these bonds priced this morning. We did have this discussion briefly with both Lori and Jerry earlier today, and I had a chance to speak with Paul as well. As you can imagine, we got to get in touch with everybody around the bond issue throughout the course of the day to make sure they understand. And so that was all taken care of going into the early afternoon. At this point, we're gonna hit the pause button. The bond sale can be brought back into the market at any time, but even if rates stay the same, again, the market's telling us that those final two maturities need to be lower in rate to produce the 4% net present value savings. And so some level of a regroup makes sense. We can continue to watch the market. If rates go down sufficiently, this is really a non-issue. But they'd have to go down a meaningful amount, longer term rates in the near term. A few other options would be to reestablish expectations on the savings or potentially eliminate the prepayment feature and be resigned to the fact that we'll still enjoy the savings over the remaining life of the issue. And the option of prepayment, which includes refinance, is not as valuable as we had once thought. So in order to have those conversations, we probably need a little time to unfold and potentially re-engage with the healthcare center board, talk through some things and make sure we know where the market is at, what their expectations are. And that next meeting is July 10th. In between now and then, certainly if rates decline precipitously, I think this bond sale could be put back onto the calendar and we could achieve the results that we had anticipated. But barring that, it's probably a good opportunity just to reassess where things stand. The offering document can be amended really at any point for any number of reasons to come back into the market. We did get the rating back from Standard & Poor's. They affirmed the county's rating at AA-. I thought that would be important for everyone to know. Also realized that the last time we got the rating, there was a negative outlook attached. What that means is that there's a 1 in 3 chance of a downgrade, I think, in the next 2 years. The negative outlook is wholly related to the county's prior use of essentially cash reserves to supplement the budget, which is not uncommon, but it wasn't necessary for 2023. We just don't have audited results back. And so when we update them with 23 results and it shows positively, they will take that into consideration as to whether or not to remove the outlook, the negative outlook that's attached to the rating as it stands right now. I'm not sure that hurt us much, if at all, when pricing the bonds. Based on the analysis that I went through today, it's entirely related to the call feature and underestimating the amount of premium rate that would be required to enjoy that option. So I'm gonna pause there and see if there are questions or other comments. I recognize this is a heavy subject, but I'm happy to go into any detail you'd like.
Any questions from the board at all? I guess there is no questions. Pretty well answered, but you're still watching the market. And so
Indeed. Like as I stated, the authorization from the board stands, and we have our parameters in place. And so, amongst the administrative staff within the county and at the healthcare center, we'll all work collectively towards a solution here. And I think no matter what, you get an update at the July County Board meeting.
Okay, thank you. Oh, Mr.
Chair.
Becker.
Yeah, just a quick question. What's the difference if they prepay, if you take that out, what's the money difference there, or if you leave it in?
So I haven't run the numbers on a dollar basis, but if I just go back to the estimates we had last week based upon some other results, which we were very close to in all of the other maturities throughout the whole structure, we were a little over $900,000 in savings versus, let me just bring that up real quick so I don't speak out of turn since you asked the question. I want to make sure I give you the right answer. That one. Bear with me for one moment. I thought I had it up.
But you said the prepay would only be about 780 then if we took it right out of there, correct? The savings?
Well, today when we priced, we generated about $700,000 in savings. When we ran this last week with some spread over market rates to account for a number of differences, including the credit and the fact that we had some callable maturities versus other transactions that had non-callable maturities that were comparable in size. We generated almost, I want to say about $180,000 more in savings over the life of the issue. And so it's really those last two maturities that are much further off of where we've seen other transactions priced that have longer call features. They go out a little further. Even 2 years is a benefit, but at that point, you're getting to only having two maturities callable, and then you really have to ask yourself the question if that has any value at all, other than just purely prepaying. And again, 2 years is not a long time. And so then you're visiting in your mind as to whether or not that makes logical sense to kind of shoehorn that type of a feature in for no real tangible benefit.
Yes, go ahead.
So when you're talking rate cuts, how does that work? The feds right now are looking at like a 0.25% rate cut, one rate cut for the year. How does that affect us?
Nominally, the nice thing about this particular refinancing is that we built into it 90 days of reinvestment using treasury securities. And so essentially, we've got interest accruing on the old bonds at a blended rate on the remaining maturities. And then we can earn interest on the proceeds of the new bonds for a period of 90 days. And that amount is higher. The interest earnings are higher than the interest accrual on the prior bonds. The net amount to the good is about $150,000. And so higher short-term rates are actually a bit of a net benefit. And if they come down, we'll close the gap between the existing bonds and the interest rate on those and what we can reinvest the proceeds at. And so it won't affect us as much on the borrowing side. It'll affect us more on the reinvestment side. And I know, again, that's a little bit of inside baseball, but we're obviously looking at every opportunity we can to generate the highest amount of savings without taking undue risk, and putting the money into like a 90-day T-bill is about as low risk as you can get. And so that seemed like a wise decision, and we'd like to take advantage of that. But if the Federal Reserve does cut short-term rates, our interest earnings will decline as a result of that. It won't be enough to totally eliminate the positive float, so to speak, but it'll certainly eat into that, which means then it's a little less efficient if rates on the intermediate and longer term part of the interest rate spectrum don't go down commensurately. If they go down, it'll have a lot of value. But just because the Federal Reserve cuts short-term rates, it doesn't mean necessarily that 5, 7, 10-year rates also go down a corresponding amount. They may or may not.
Okay, thanks.
Okay. Any other questions?
John?
Not? Yes, go ahead.
Just a clarification in your numbers. Did you say 108,000 or 180,000?
Our prior estimates from last week produced, I want to say about 100, and I don't want to speak out of turn here. I'm sorry, I paused at looking at my numbers. I can just see it in just a second. All right. I'm sorry, 138,000. So that's the difference between kind of where we had pegged things out and where things landed today.
Okay.
That would be in excess of the 4% threshold.
Okay, I don't see any other questions, so thank you, Brian. See you
Thank you
next
all.
month.
Okay, very good.
we'll go on with the resolutions. Go ahead.
Okay.
Yep.
Whereas Emery Palmer has represented District 6 as a member of the Trempealeau County Board of Supervisors from 2023 to 2024. Whereas Mr. Palmer has been a valuable member and has served on many county committees, boards, and commissions. Now be it resolved that the Trempealeau County Board of Supervisors do hereby publicly express their appreciation of his service, his counsel, and all the efforts which rendered him an invaluable participant in county government in behalf of the citizens of Trempealeau County. Be it further resolved that this resolution be made a part of the official record of this session in recognition of his service. Introduced by John Austin, County Board Chair.
Motion made and seconded to approve. It was made by
Adams.
Supervisor Nutter and seconded by Supervisor Adams. Voice vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Okay, it's carried. Next resolution.
Whereas David Orsh has represented District 9 as a member of the Trempealeau County Board of Supervisors from 2022 to 2024, and whereas Mr. Orsh has been a valuable member and has served on county committees, boards, and commissions, now be it resolved that the Trempealeau County Board of Supervisors do hereby publicly express their appreciation of his service, his counsel, and all the efforts which rendered him an invaluable participant in county government in behalf of the citizens of Trempealeau County. Be it further resolved that this resolution be made a part of the official record of this session in recognition of his service. Introduced by John Austin, County Board Chair.
I'll move to approve.
Motion by Supervisor Waldera and seconded by Supervisor Todd. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Okay, that's carried. Next one.
And whereas Dan Schreiner has represented District 13 as a member of the Trempealeau County Board of Supervisors from 2020 to 2024. Whereas Mr. Schreiner has been a valuable member and has served on many county committees, boards, and commissions. Now be it resolved that the Trempealeau County Board of Supervisors do hereby publicly express their appreciation of his years of service, his counsel, and all the efforts which rendered him an invaluable participant in county government in behalf of the citizens of Trempealeau County. Be it further resolved that this resolution be made a part of the official record of this session in recognition of his service. Introduced by John Austin, County Board Chair.
Second.
Motion by Supervisor Johnson and seconded by Supervisor Anderson. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Okay, it's carried. Next resolution, Human Services Board.
Whereas the Trumbull County Department of Human Services has received a donation from a community member to be used for the benefit of the foster care program and families working with the department's Family and Children's Unit. And whereas the department has reason to believe that there will be additional funds raised and donations made in the future to benefit the program. And whereas there is no non-lapsing account to keep donations and funds raised separate from the department's operational funds or from the general fund at the end of the fiscal year. Now be it resolved that the Trumpealeau County Board of Supervisors hereby approves the creation and designation of a non-lapsing revenue account for the benefit of the department's foster care program and families working with the department's Family and Children Unit. Introduced by Human Services Board, Dick Miller, Jeannie Nutter, Ron Johnson, Bridget Turner, Richard Anderson, Karen Sepek, Diane Schrader.
Motion by Supervisor Nutter, second by Supervisor Johnson. Did you want to talk to it there? Tell the public a little more about it at least?
Sure, I can. I'll turn my microphone on here. Sure, I just wanted to, I can give you a little bit of context for this. We didn't have an account existing for donations to the foster care program or folks, working with our Family and Children's Units and previously. And so recently there was a former detective, I believe, who passed away, and his family had asked for memorials to be donated to the foster care program for the county. and the families we're working with. So we anticipate that we've already received some, and we will most likely receive additional. And then any fundraising in the future that we do could also go into this account as well to benefit the families of our county. So we thought this would be a good next step for this to make sure that we're honoring those memorials and those requests.
Thank you, Jay. Any other questions of Jay? Go ahead.
Not necessarily of him, I guess, or either or for Corporation Council. This is set up, I'm all in favor of this, okay. I don't see anything in here stipulating in this resolution that no county funds can creep into this. Do we have other means in our system to make sure that doesn't happen unless it's authorized? Or do we need to add something in here designated this is for donations and fundraisers only?
It's labeled as donations, so I don't know how
It's labeled,
other-
but it doesn't in the resolution. I'm questioning for help.
With it being only donations, anything can happen generally, but it says it's donations only. So if there's ever a question, we go back to the resolution and the approval there.
Okay.
So.
Okay.
And I'll just make one more comment. There will be a corresponding expense account that it's attached to this one, so.
Okay, thank you, Jay. Okay. Call for the vote.
Stacy Klein.
Yes.
Richard Sasha.
Yes.
Lori Severson.
Yes.
Andy Todd.
Yes.
Richard Anderson.
Yes.
Kevin Adams.
Yes.
Dick Miller.
Yes.
Kevin Whalen.
Yes.
John Austin.
Yes.
Don Waldera.
Yes.
Robert Becker.
Yep.
Kellen Nelson.
Yes.
David Larson.
Yes.
Jeannie Nutter.
Yes.
Ron Johnson.
Yes.
Bridget Turner.
Yes.
16-0.
Okay, next one is Parks, Tourism, Economic Development Committee.
Whereas,
Go ahead.
Whereas the state of Wisconsin developed a broadband equity access and deployment BEAD local planning grant program for all Wisconsin counties and federally recognized tribes. And whereas pursuant to action taken by the Trumpealeau County Board on June 19th, 2023, Trumpealeau County accepted an $18,337.40 BEAD grant from the Wisconsin Public Service Commission, PSC, to assist with local planning, including but not limited to outreach initiatives, local needs assessment and analysis, and local plans for broadband development. And whereas Trumpealeau County has joined a collaborative effort to combine grant funds from Pepin, Buffalo, and Pierce counties to write a quad county broadband plan. And whereas it has been determined that a consultant needs to be hired to do technical work which cannot be performed by county staff to assist in this planning. And whereas the amount awarded to each of the counties alone is also not sufficient to hire a broadband consultant. And whereas the quad county group is in the final stages of negotiating a consultant contract which will share the contractual costs between the four counties. Now be it resolved that the Trumpealeau County Board of Supervisors authorizes the county administrator to review and execute an agreement and contract related to the hiring of a broadband consultant for this BEAD project in collaboratively serve Pierce, Pepin, Buffalo, and Trumpealeau counties. Introduced by Parks, Tourism, and Economic Development, Jeannie Nutter, Lori Severson, Buzz Sorge, Kevin Whalen, Renee Lyon, Jean Galazinski, Bob Petrick.
Motion by Supervisor Nutter, seconded by Supervisor Klein. I see we have a speaker here that want to talk on the subject.
I'm just here to answer questions. If
Is
there are any, I
is there
will
any
add.
questions?
The vote by the committee was 7-0. For some reason, that didn't make it on what was in your packet.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 1, yeah, 7, and then 1 didn't vote. Yeah.
Any questions? Dave? Mr. Larson?
Again, we're saying that the grant alone is not sufficient, and we're authorizing the execution of this contract? What kind of monies are we looking at?
So each county in the state and all eligible tribal entities received 18,000 and whatever the amount is, or 18,337. We quickly realized as neighboring counties, Buffalo, Pepin, and then later Pierce, that the work that the state was expecting us to do in terms of doing a broadband needs assessment, developing, potential plans for servicing areas was not going to be something that, we could do with county staff or with the $18,000 that they gave us. So we decided to work together, and we've done a lot of the groundwork. And now the point we got to was that, we determined we needed to hire a consultant. So we put out an RFP for consultants, and they ranged from about $68,000, $69,000 on up to like over $100,000. The one that we're in the final negotiating stages with, RESPEC out of Roseville, Minnesota, we've negotiated the price down to about, I think it was $65,000. So the proportional share of, for each county is going to be about $16,000. We've spent about $1,000 to date in expenses charged towards this grant for some training, some travel. And so we will be able, if you approve this resolution and allow the county administrator to sign, we'll be able to execute that contract, get this developed in the next 4 or 5 months. And just so people know, and I don't want to take more of your time because I know you have a long agenda, but really what this is this is the state, has given us money to develop these plans because they're due July 1st, I think, next year. And that's about the same time that a very large tranche of funding is going to be coming to the state from the federal government. I think it's $1.4 billion to Wisconsin alone to build out broadband where there's no service or where it's underserved. And they've just recently revised the underserved definition to be anything less than 100 megabits per second download and 25 upload. So Trempealeau County, from the stuff we've seen so far and what we're expecting to get out of this consultant, has a lot of those areas. So that money is going to flow to areas like ours before it goes to, more urban areas where there's more built up broadband infrastructure. So this is just, when we first applied for this grant and approved it, in that resolution, there was language that Dave should come and report from time to time. So that's what I'm doing. Sorry, that's a long answer to your question.
I was only verifying that it's a matter of the money you have and spending it,
Yeah,
not,
we
not
could-
asking for any more.
We could not have hired a consultant on our own. And to be honest with you, just what you're saying was a concern a week or two ago because the initial proposal would have exceeded our budget. So we went back and, I kind of pushed on the 4 counties to do that. And we were able to go back and renegotiate downward to fit into our budget.
Thank you.
Yep.
Just a comment, it does say at the bottom of this resolution that there will be no fiscal impact to the county as all expenses are fully reimbursed under the BEAT grant. That's correct?
Yes, yep. Just wanted to make sure that we weren't, backdoor asking you for additional money on this thing. The original intent, and the intent still is for the state grant to fund this. It might mean that I don't charge some of my time spent on this going forward. We've got a little bit of money left, but.
Supervisor Klein's got a question.
Oh, when you mentioned the cost for the consultant, how long did you say that was for?
It's for the contract. It's to produce a report.
Okay,
Yeah,
so just
and-
however long it takes them to
Correct.
do that, or, okay.
Correct.
Okay,
Yeah.
thanks.
We're expecting it'll take about 4 months from kickoff next month. We'll probably have a final report by November. And that'll also include, identifying projects and potential broadband providers that we could work with, so.
Dave, is this kind of like that mapping they were talking about before? This is pretty similar, right?
Yeah, well, so it's taking the existing mapping that's there that that pretty accurately shows service gaps and refining that a little bit more. But then the next step really is to take that and to start identifying those under and unserved areas and kind of combining them, if you will, into like, okay, to serve this, these 30 houses, it would take this kind of a connection, or can we cover 200 houses if we built, if somebody would build a tower and do, the
Some of that's already been done, so when you get the engineer, you should tell them to check with the other co-ops around here.
Correct.
Because why double up on things that you don't need to?
No,
When you can use the
absolutely.
money elsewhere, so.
Yeah, it's right. They'll be using existing data, and the money will be more to developing, actual plans and identifying partners that could, build that.
Okay. No more questions? Thank you, Dave. Call the roll.
Dick Miller. Dick Miller.
Yes.
Kevin Whalen.
Yes.
John Austin.
Yes.
Don Waldera.
Yes.
Robert Becker.
Yes.
Kellen Nelson.
Yes.
David Larson.
Yes.
Jeannie Nutter.
Yes.
Ron Johnson.
Yes.
Bridget Turner.
Yes.
Stacy Klein.
Yes.
Richard Sasha.
Yes.
Lori Severson.
Yes.
Andy Todd.
Yes.
Richard Anderson.
Yes.
Kevin Adams.
Yes.
16-0.
Okay. Audit Committee. Members' claims.
Whereas the Audit Committee has audited the following claims and recommend that they be allowed as follows. John Austin, $673.70. Kevin Adams, $120.10. Richard Anderson, $343.13. Robert Becker, $310.30. Ron Johnson, $200.92. Stacy Klein, $478.64. David Larson, $347.82. Renee Lyon, $300. Dick Miller, $121.44. Kellen Nelson, $64.74. Jeannie Nutter, $475.04. Richard Sasha, $339.36. Lori Severson, 0. Andy Todd, 0. Bridget Turner, $92.88. Don Waldera, $118.76. Kevin Whalen, $191.22. Total per diems, $3,300. Total expenses, $878.05. Grand total, $4,178.05. Now be it resolved that the claims be allowed as shown, introduced by Audit Committee, John Austin, Lori Severson, Andy Todd.
Moved by Mr. Johnson, seconded by Supervisor Severson. All of them.
Kellen Nelson.
Yes.
David Larson.
Yes.
Jeannie Nutter.
Yes.
Ron Johnson.
Yes.
Bridget Turner.
Yes.
Stacy Klein.
Yes.
Richard Sasha.
Yes.
Lori Severson.
Yes.
Andy Todd.
Yes.
Richard Anderson.
Yes.
Kevin Adams.
Yes.
Dick Miller.
Yes.
Kevin Whalen.
Yes.
John Austin.
Yes.
Don Waldera.
Yes.
Robert Becker.
Yes.
16-0.
And now some to the committees. Think you did took care of that?
Yes. Okay. In the Executive Finance Committee, in some of your materials, you would have found, is this what you're?
No, this would be with Diane Schrader.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Appointments,
Oh, I'm
citizen
sorry,
member.
on 8.
Yep.
Yeah, okay. Yes, these appointments are coming forward for your approval on committees. And we have letters that have been submitted to the clerk in support of those appointments.
So do you want to do them all at once or
Sure.
by line?
Do them all at once.
Well, let's see. Well, the appointment citizen member, Human Services Board to succeed Diane Schrader, and it's recommended that she succeed herself. And if you want to keep going on those, then with the Health Committee, to succeed Dr. William Baxa and Pam Nelson, and the letter says that they recommend that they both be reappointed. And the last one, maybe this one should be separate, because this is different.
Okay,
Do you want to do that?
let's just vote on the first two then.
Move to approve.
Motion by Supervisor Nutter and second by Supervisor Johnson to approve the first two. I think we just do that with a voice vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
All right, very good. And then appoint the citizen members to the Board of Adjustment, James Schwartz, Nancy Horton, and Randy Severson.
And their replacements will be, should I read, then I'm going to
Please.
read the letter, okay. As directed by Kellen Nelson, Chair of Environment and Land Use Committee, I'm forwarding the following names for your consideration for 2 regular board member appointments and 1 alternate appointment to the Trempealeau County Board of Adjustment. John Skaug, Town of Hale, George Brandt, Town of Ettrick, and Barry Schmidt, Town of Burnside. James Schwartz, Town of Hale, and Nancy Horton, Town of Ettrick, currently serve as regular Board of Adjustment members, and their terms are expiring. Both James and Nancy would like to retire from the board as they have served on the board for many years. Randy Severson, Town of Trempealeau, is currently serving as an alternate. Corporation Counsel has suggested that with Severson serving on the Environment and Land Use Committee also, there could be a conflict of interest at some point and has recommended that he no longer serve. All persons mentioned above have agreed to serve the 3-year term. It is our request that these appointments be made so that confirmation can be made no later than June 2024 County Board meeting, as the terms of these 3 current board members expire on June 30th, 2024. Should you have any questions or need further information, please do not hesitate to contact me, and it's signed by Mark Carlson, Interim Zoning Director.
Move to approve.
Second.
Yeah. Motion by Supervisor Nutter and the second was by Supervisor Sisha. Would you repeat the 3 names? Just to
Sure.
refresh.
John Skaug from the Town of Hale, George Brandt from the Town of Ettrick, and Barry Schmidt from the Town of Burnside. Barry
Okay.
Schmidt would be the alternate.
Heard the names. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Nobody? So that's carried. Committee reports, Ag Finance Monthly Budget Report, and sales tax.
The sales tax and general fund were in your packets, and the updated expense was on your desk tonight.
Okay. Highway Department Financial Statement,
That was also in your packets.
which is on your computer if you have your computer. Okay,
I got
correspondence.
them on either side.
on either side.
I got 2 of them.
Correspondence, letter of appreciation.
This letter was addressed to municipal and county clerks of the state of Wisconsin. In recognition of Clerk Appreciation Week, the undersigned nonpartisan organization wish to express our deepest gratitude for the critically important work you do, day in and day out, to provide voter access and ensure the safety and security of our state's elections. We value your efforts all the more in light of the many challenges facing election officials today, both in Wisconsin and across the country. From a rapidly shifting legal landscape to staffing and resource constraints to a reportedly growing volume of threats against election workers, we applaud you for your tireless service to Wisconsin voters. At a time when it's easier than ever to spread rumors and misinformation and harder for voters to discern what is true and what isn't, Wisconsin clerks play a critical role in building the public's trust in our democracy. We deeply appreciate your work to educate voters and the public about Wisconsin's electoral process, from helping Wisconsinites understand where, when, and how to cast their ballots, to explaining the extensive security measures that ensure our elections are fair and secure. We believe you are doing a tremendous job to win the public's trust and to build confidence in our elections. This fact is borne out in recent polling by the Secure Democracy Foundation. 82% of Wisconsin voters support our state's system of checks and balances, in which local election officials count votes and the supervising authority declares the winner. Furthermore, 60% of Wisconsin voters say they trust their local election officials most when it comes to ensuring fair and accurate elections, more than any other officials or institutions included in the poll. As nonpartisan organizations dedicated to an inclusive and secure election system, we know that a vibrant democracy would not be possible without you, your staff, and your volunteers. Wisconsin will once again be in the national spotlight this election year, and we look forward to supporting your critically important work in the months ahead. And it's signed by Secure Democracy Foundation, GROW, Number I, Voted Concerts, Disability Rights Wisconsin, Leaders Igniting Transformation, Common Cause in Wisconsin, Represent Us, Wisconsin Interfaith Voters Engagement Campaign, Wisconsin Keep Our Republic, Wisconsin Alliance for Civic Trust, Voters First Wisconsin, Leader Ethics, Wisconsin Democracy Campaign, All Voting is Local, ACLU of Wisconsin, League of Women Voters of Wisconsin, Lutheran Office for Public Policy in Wisconsin, Souls to the Polls, and Protect Democracy. They all have their nice little logos.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
I would personally like to thank Paul for all the work that he has done, the late night driving during elections, and making sure that all of the villages and communities in our county have had what they need for elections. And of course, Paul, all the other work that you do. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Okay, item 11, instruct the clerk to pay mileage and per diem. Need a motion.
Move to approve.
Motion by Supervisor Nutter, seconded by Supervisor Becker. Call the roll.
Bridget Turner.
Yes.
Stacy Klein.
Yes.
Richard Sasha.
Yes.
Lori Severson.
Yes.
Andy Todd.
Yes.
Richard Anderson.
Yes.
Kevin Adams.
Yes.
Dick Miller.
Yes.
Kevin Whalen.
Yes.
John Austin.
Yes.
Dawn Waldera.
Yes.
Robert Becker.
Yes.
Kellen Nelson.
Yes.
David Larson.
Yes.
Jeannie Nutter.
Yes.
Ron Johnson.
Yes.
16-0.
The one I was looking for on the agenda is next, looking for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Motion made to adjourn. Yeah, oh, excuse me, go ahead. You got a question?
Oh. We don't have it on our.
We don't
it's
have
not on
public comments at a county board meeting, committee. Is it something that can be brought to a committee or?
You can talk to everybody afterwards.
Yeah. Otherwise, we'll adjourn the meeting.
You got a motion,
Oh.
but you didn't get a second.
Second.
Motion made and seconded to adjourn. All those in favor signify, oh, you did.
You made
Motion-
it,
I did, sorry.
and I seconded it.
Okay, motion made.
We're a team.
All
We're a
those in
tag
favor
team
signify
here.
by saying aye.
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 I gotta go get